I'm Abigail, 29, standing in a ballroom glowing with my designs. My heart pounds as I spot my mother's sister and her husband, my old love, stepping in. Their faces are tight, unaware of who's beside me. Years back, my mother convinced my boyfriend to marry my sister, claiming she was better, stronger. It broke me. I left, rebuilt everything, and now at my party, they'll meet my husband. The chandelier above my creation catches their eyes. Who's he? Stick around. Where are you watching from? Hit like, subscribe, and let's share this journey. I was 24, living in our small Ohio house, the kind with creaky floors and a porch that sagged under too many summers. My name's Abigail, and back then I was holding everything together, or trying to. Mom Diane had a way of making every day feel like a test I hadn't studied for. Sadie, my younger sister, was 22, all charm and no responsibility, leaving dishes in the sink and bills on the table for me to handle. I worked remotely as the graphic designer, my laptop humming late into the night, paying for groceries. The electric mom's prescriptions. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, this life I'd carved out. Nathan was my anchor. We'd been together 2 years, and he was the kind of guy who'd fix your car in the rain without complaining. He was a mechanic, saving every penny for his dream of opening a shop. We'd sit on my bed sketching out our future, a little house with a garden, maybe a dog. I'd draw him goofy cartoons, him in overalls with a wrench, and he'd laugh, tucking them into his wallet. I loved how his eyes crinkled when he smiled, how he'd pull me close and say, "Abby, we're gonna make it." I believed him. Lately, though, things felt off. Nathan started coming over more, not just for me, but to help around the house. The faucet leaked, the back door stuck, and Mom would call him instead of a handyman. Nathan's so reliable, she'd say, her voice syrupy, like she was praising a kid for good grades. It was nice at first, him pitching in, but then I'd catch her watching him, her eyes lingering too long. She'd pat his shoulder, call him the son I never had, and I'd feel this prickle like I'd swallowed something sharp. Sadie was worse. She'd breeze into the living room when Nathan was there, her laugh louder than usual, her hair tossed just so. She'd ask him to explain car engines or tease him about his flannel shirts, and he'd grin, playing along. I told myself it was nothing, just Sadie being Sadie, always needing attention. But one afternoon, I found her wearing his jacket, the one I'd borrowed 100 times, its sleeves smelling of motor oil and him. It was cold, she said, shrugging, but her smile was too easy, too knowing. I kept busy burying myself in work, designing logos for clients who never seemed satisfied. My desk was a mess of coffee mugs and Post-its, my eyes burning from the screen. Nathan would text promising dinner, but then he'd cancel, saying he was swamped at the garage. I'd wait up scrolling through our old messages, the ones where he'd write, "You're my home, Abby." Now his replies were short, distracted. I wondered if I was imagining things, if the late nights were making me paranoid. One evening I was in my room sketching a new project when I heard Mom's voice from the kitchen, low and urgent. "Nathan's got big dreams," she was saying. "He needs someone who can keep up, not drag him down." Sadie's laugh followed, sharp and bright. I froze, my pencil hovering over the paper. They didn't know I was listening, didn't know my door was cracked open. "He's sweet on you, Sadie," Mom went on. "You're vibrant, strong." Abigail's too caught up in her work, always so serious. My stomach twisted. I set the pencil down, my hands shaking. They were talking about Nathan, my Nathan, like he was a prize to be won. I wanted to storm and demand answers, but my feet wouldn't move. Instead, I sat there, the sketch blurring as my eyes stung. I'd drawn Nathan and me together, a silly cartoon of us in that future house, but now it felt like a lie. The prickle in my chest grew, spreading like wildfire. I needed to talk to Nathan, to hear him say it was nothing, but deep down I was already afraid of what he'd say. The next morning I woke with a headache, the kind that feels like your skull's too tight. I'd barely slept, Mom's words looping in my head, vibrant, strong, not like me. I dragged myself to the kitchen, hoping coffee would steady me. Nathan was coming over later, and I needed to talk to him to clear the fog in my chest. The house was quiet. Sadie still asleep, Mom out at her book club. I stood by the sink, staring at a chipped mug I'd bought at a flea market with Nathan. It felt like a relic from someone else's life. When Nathan arrived, his truck rattled into the driveway and I met him on the porch. His hair was messy, his eyes tired, but he smiled, and for a second, I almost forgot the ache. We sat on the steps, the wood creaking under us. "You okay, Abby?" he asked, his voice soft. I wanted to scream to spill everything I'd heard, but I swallowed hard instead. "You've been distant," I said, picking at a splinter on the railing. "Is something going on?" He shifted, looking at the ground. "Work's crazy, you know that. And your mom? She's been talking to me a lot." My heart lurched. Talking about what? I pressed my voice sharper than I meant. He rubbed his neck the way he did when he was nervous. "Just life, I guess. My shop, the future. She thinks Sadie could help with the business side, like marketing or something." I blinked, the words landing like a slap. Sadie, who couldn't balance her own checkbook, was suddenly his business partner. I stood pacing the porch, my sneakers scuffing the worn paint. "Nathan, what are you saying? You and Sadie?" He stood too, hands raised like he was calming a spooked horse. "It's not like that, Abby. Your mom she's got ideas about what's best. I'm trying to sort it out." His words were vague, slippery, and I felt the ground tilting under me. "Sort what out?" I snapped. "You're my boyfriend. Why's my family in your head?" He didn't answer, just looked away, and that silence cut deeper than any lie. Back inside, I shut myself in my room, my laptop open but untouched. My client's logo revisions could wait. I pulled out my sketchbook, flipping to a blank page, but my hands wouldn't move. Instead, I found a note tucked in the back, one I hadn't seen before. It was Mom's handwriting scrawled on a torn receipt. "Nathan, Sadie's your spark. Don't settle for less." My breath caught the paper crumpling in my fist. It must have been slipped into his toolbox, meant for him, not me. The betrayal wasn't just words now. It was real, deliberate. At work, over a video call, my coworker Tara noticed my voice shaking. "Abigail, you look like you haven't slept in a week," she said, her brow furrowed. I tried to laugh it off, but my throat tightened. "It's just family stuff," I mumbled. Tara leaned closer to her screen, her earrings glinting. "Family can be the worst. You ever think about getting your own place? You're carrying too much." Her words hit hard, stirring something I'd buried. Leaving felt impossible, but staying was starting to feel worse. That night I went to Sadie's room, the door half open, her music humming softly. She was sprawled on her bed, scrolling her phone, wearing a new necklace I didn't recognize. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low. She sat up, her eyes narrowing like she'd been waiting for this. "About what, Abby?" "Your boyfriend?" Her tone was light teasing, but her smirk told me everything. "What's going on with you and Nathan?" I asked, my fists clenched. She laughed, tossing her hair. "Nothing's going on. But maybe he's figuring out who's actually worth his time." I stood there, frozen, her words sinking in. Sadie wasn't just flirting. She was claiming him, and Mom was paving the way. The house, my home, felt like a trap closing around me. I walked out, my pulse pounding, knowing I couldn't ignore this anymore. Something was breaking, and I wasn't sure if it was my heart or my trust in everyone I loved. Days bled into each other, the house heavier with every sunrise. I was still Abigail, 24, but I felt like a stranger in my own skin, moving through routines to keep from falling apart. Sadie's smirk from our fight lingered, a splinter I couldn't pull out. Mom's note, crumpled in my drawer, burned in my mind. I kept working my laptop screen, a blurry escape, but even that felt hollow. Nathan hadn't called since our porch talk, and his silence was louder than any argument. Mom was relentless. She'd invite Nathan over for dinner, acting like it was normal, her voice dripping with pride as she set an extra plate. "He's such a help," she'd say, passing him the mashed potatoes while I washed dishes in the background. Sadie would glow, leaning close to him, asking about his day like I wasn't there. I'd catch Nathan's eyes, hoping for a sign he still saw me, but he'd look away, fork scraping his plate. My stomach churned, but I stayed quiet, scrubbing pots until my knuckles ached, afraid speaking would unravel everything. One night I found my journal on the coffee table, pages splayed open. I'd written about Nathan, my fears, how Mom's words made me feel small. The ink was smudged like someone had run their fingers over it. Sadie was in the next room humming, and I knew it was her. I stormed in holding the journal up. "Did you read this?" I asked, my voice shaking. She glanced over, lounging on the couch, and shrugged. "It was just lying there, Abby." "You're so dramatic." Her nonchalance hit like a punch. My thoughts, my pain were nothing to her. I started avoiding the house, staying late at my desk, but Mom noticed. "You're never around anymore," she said one morning, stirring her coffee. "Nathan and Sadie are helping with the community garden now. You should join them. Stop being so selfish." Selfish? The word stung like I was the one tearing us apart. I wanted to scream that they were stealing my life, but I just nodded, grabbing my keys. "Work's busy," I mumbled and left my throat tight. Tara, my coworker, kept me grounded. Over lunch at a diner, she pushed her fries toward me, her eyes sharp. "Abigail, your mom's playing favorites and it's not you. You gotta protect yourself." I poked at my sandwich, her words sinking in. She told me about her own mom, how she'd left home at 19 to escape the same kind of control. "You're stronger than you think," she said. I wanted to believe her, but I felt like I was drowning. Then my dad, Harold, called. We hadn't spoken in years, not since he left when I was 12. His voice was gravelly hesitant, saying he was in town and wanted to see me. Mom always called him a deadbeat, but I was desperate for someone to understand. We met at a park, him in a faded jacket, looking older than I remembered. "I messed up, Abby," he said, staring at the ground. "I want to make it right." I told him about Mom, Sadie, Nathan, my voice cracking. He listened, nodding, promising to help me figure things out. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. But hope was fragile. Back home, Mom cornered me in the hallway, her arms crossed. "I heard you're talking to your father," she said, her tone icy. "He's trouble, Abigail. Stick with family with us." Us meant her and Sadie, not me. That night I lay awake, the ceiling fan clicking above me. Nathan was slipping away. Mom was rewriting my place in the family, and Sadie was winning. I clutched my journal, writing one line, "I'm losing everything." The weight of it was crushing, and I didn't know how much more I could take. The air in the house felt thicker, like I was breathing through a straw. I was still 24, still Abigail, but every step I took seemed to sink me deeper into a place I didn't recognize. After Mom's warning about Dad, I kept my distance from her, tiptoeing around the kitchen, avoiding her sharp glances. But she had a way of filling every room, her voice carrying through the walls, praising Sadie's latest idea or Nathan's work ethic. I'd hear them laughing in the living room, and it was like I'd been erased, my place at the table gone. I tried reaching out to Dad again, hoping he'd keep his promise. I called him from this back porch, the evening air cool against my skin. "I need you," I said, my voice low, afraid Mom would hear. He mumbled something about being busy, but swore he'd meet me soon. "Just hang in there, Abby," he said before hanging up. I stared at my phone, the screen dimming, and felt a hollow ache. He wasn't coming, not really. I'd pinned too much on a man who'd already walked away once. Work was my only escape, but even that was slipping. I missed a deadline for a client, my focus shot from sleepless nights. Tara emailed me, her tone gentle but firm. "Abigail, you're dropping the ball. Talk to me." I couldn't not yet. Instead, I drove to the town festival that weekend, needing noise lights, anything to drown out the chaos in my head. The fairgrounds were packed, families eating cotton candy, kids chasing balloons. I wandered alone, my sneakers crunching on gravel, pretending I belonged. Then I saw them. Sadie and Nathan, arm in arm by the Ferris wheel. She was laughing, her head tilted back, and he was grinning the way he used to with me. Mom stood nearby, chatting with a neighbor, her smile wide like she'd orchestrated it all. People glanced my way, their whispers sharp enough to cut. "Wasn't she with him?" one woman muttered. My face burned and I turned to leave, but a vendor I knew, Mr. Ellis, called out. "Abigail, you okay?" He handed me a coffee, his eyes kind. "You're stronger than this mess." I nodded, clutching the cup, but his words only made the hurt sharper. I got home late, the house dark except for a light in the kitchen. Mom was there sipping tea, her hair pulled back tight. "You're out a lot these days," she said, not looking up. "People are talking, saying you're jealous of Sadie and Nathan. It's embarrassing." I froze my keys, digging into my palm. "Embarrassing," I said, my voice low. "You're the one pushing them together, Mom. You're breaking us apart." She set her mug down, her eyes cold. "Sadie's got a spark you don't, Abigail. Nathan sees it. You should too." I wanted to yell, to throw something, but my body wouldn't move. I stumbled to my room, locking the door, my breath ragged. My journal was still on my desk, its pages a map of everything I'd lost. I didn't write, couldn't. Instead, I opened my closet, pulling out a box of old photos. There was one of me and Nathan at a lake, his arm around me, both of us smiling. I stared at it, my chest tight, until I couldn't anymore. I shoved it back, slamming the box shut. The next day, I saw them again outside the hardware store. Sadie was holding Nathan's hand, her laughter ringing out, and he was carrying her bags, his face soft. Mom was with them, nodding like a proud coach. I stood across the street, hidden by a parked car, watching my life unravel. My phone buzzed, Dad finally texting. "Sorry, kid, got tied up." Next week, I didn't reply. Nobody was coming to save me, and the truth was suffocating. My family had chosen Sadie, and Nathan had let them. I turned away, my heart pounding, knowing I was running out of reasons to stay. I was 24, and the house I'd called home felt like a cage. After seeing Sadie and Nathan at the hardware store, Mom beaming beside them, I couldn't breathe right. I'd been holding on, convincing myself I could fix this, but the truth was clawing at me. I stopped eating dinner with them, staying in my room, my laptop's glow the only light I trusted. Work was slipping, but I didn't care. All I could think about was how to confront them, how to make them see what they'd done. That evening, I heard Nathan's truck pull up. My heart thudded as I peeked through my window, watching him step out carrying a bag of takeout. Mom greeted him at the door, her laugh too loud, and Sadie followed, her arm brushing his. I couldn't hide anymore. I grabbed my sweater, my hands trembling, and marched downstairs. They were in the living room, sprawled on the couch, a pizza box open on the coffee table. The sight of them, so comfortable, so oblivious, lit a fire in me. I stood in the doorway, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "We need to talk. All of you." Mom looked up, her smile fading. Sadie rolled her eyes, tossing a slice of pizza back in the box. Nathan froze, his jaw tight. "Abigail, not now." Mom said, her tone sharp, like I was a child interrupting. "No," I snapped. "Now. I heard you, Mom, telling Nathan Sadie's better for him. I saw you two together, Sadie acting like I don't exist. And you, Nathan, you let this happen." "Why?" The room went still. Sadie leaned back, crossing her arms, her lips curling into a half smile. "You're making a scene, Abby. Chill." Her casualness made my blood boil. "A scene," I said, stepping closer. "You're stealing my boyfriend and you're calling me dramatic." Nathan stood, his hands raised. "Abby, it's not what you think. Your mom's just been guiding me." I laughed, bitter and raw. "Guiding you to dump me for her?" Mom stood too, her face hard. "Abigail, stop this. Nathan needs someone who can support his dreams, not hold him back with your endless work and whining." Her words hit like a brick. I turned to her, my voice shaking. "You're my mother. You're supposed to love me, not tear me apart." She didn't flinch, just stared like I was a stranger. Sadie chimed in, her voice smug. "Face it, Abby. You're too boring for him. He wants someone who lights up a room." I looked at Nathan, waiting for him to deny it, to choose me. His eyes darted to the floor, and then he spoke, his voice low. "Abby, I proposed to Sadie last night. Your mom's helping us with the shop. I didn't mean to hurt you." The world tilted. Proposed. The word echoed, shredding everything I'd held on to. I saw the ring on Sadie's finger glinting under the lamp, and my knees buckled. "You what?" I whispered, my voice breaking. I stumbled back, my hand grabbing the armrest to steady myself. A glass figurine I'd made for Mom's birthday sat on the shelf nearby, a delicate bird I'd spent hours shaping. It wobbled as I brushed past, crashing to the floor, splintering into pieces. The sound was deafening, mirroring the fracture inside me. "You all broke me," I said, tears burning my eyes. Sadie smirked. Mom's face was stone and Nathan wouldn't look up. I wanted to scream to make them feel the weight of my pain, but words failed me. Tara's car pulled up outside her headlights, cutting through the dusk. She'd been texting, worried, insisting on helping me move out. I heard her knock, but I couldn't move, trapped in the wreckage of my family. "Abigail, enough," Mom said, stepping toward me. "You're making a fool of yourself." Her voice was ice, and in that moment, I saw it clear. She'd chosen Sadie, and I was nothing to her. The door was right there, my escape, but my feet were heavy and the truth was still sinking in. Tara's knock grew louder, but I was rooted, staring at Mom, Sadie, and Nathan, their faces a wall of indifference. The shattered figurine lay at my feet, its pieces catching the light, but no one else seemed to care. My chest heaved, each breath jagged, as Nathan's words proposed to Sadie sank deeper. I wanted to run, but my body wouldn't listen. "How could you?" I said, my voice raw, turning to Mom. "You raised me, but you chose her over me." She crossed her arms, her lips a thin line. "Abigail, you're overreacting. Nathan made his choice and Sadie's better suited. You'll find someone else." Her dismissal was a knife twisting. Sadie stood sauntering closer, her ring flashing. "Let it go, Abby," she said, her tone mocking. "You're not the center of the universe." I flinched, her words stripping me bare, making me feel small, unwanted. Nathan finally looked at me, his eyes heavy. "I didn't want it to end like this," he mumbled. "Your mom said she'd help with the shop, give us a loan. It just happened. A loan. My family had bought him, traded my heart for a business deal." I laughed a broken sound and stepped back, my heel crunching glass. "You sold me out," I said, my gaze locked on him. "All of you." The front door creaked open and Tara stepped in, her face tight with worry. "Abigail, you okay?" she asked, glancing at the scene. Mom turned, her voice sharp. "This is family business. Stay out of it." Tara ignored her, moving to my side, her hand on my arm. "You don't have to stay here," she whispered. But I wasn't ready to leave, not yet. I needed them to see my pain, to feel its weight. I turned to Sadie, my voice low, trembling. "You knew I loved him. You took him anyway." She shrugged, flipping her hair. "Love's not enough, Abby. You're too stuck in your head, always working, never fun. Nathan deserves more." Her words were a public flogging, each one stripping away another piece of me. Mom nodded like it was gospel, and Nathan just stood there, silent, complicit. I saw my life through their eyes. Abigail, the workhorse, the boring one, not worth keeping. The room spun, their faces blurring. I grabbed my purse from the couch, my fingers brushing a photo frame, me, Sadie, and Mom at a fair years ago, smiling like we were whole. It felt like a lie now. "You're my family," I said, my voice cracking. "How do you sleep at night?" Mom stepped forward, her tone final. "You'll regret this tantrum, Abigail. You're walking away from everything." Her threat hung heavy, but it was Sadie's laugh that broke me, sharp and cruel, like she'd won a game I didn't know we were playing. Tara tugged my arm gently. "Let's go," she said, her voice steady. I nodded, but my eyes stayed on them, memorizing their faces, the people who'd torn me apart. I walked to the door, my legs shaky, Tara behind me. The night air hit my face cold and sharp, but it couldn't numb the ache. I looked back once, seeing them through the window, already turning away like I was nothing. My heart was a raw wound, and I didn't know how to keep going. All I knew was I couldn't stay not one more second in a house that had never been mine. The motel room smelled of stale coffee and bleach, but it was mine, a small square of freedom. I was 24, Abigail, and I'd left the house that had crushed me, my family's betrayal still raw in my chest. Tara had driven me to Columbus that night, her car packed with my clothes, my laptop, and a box of art supplies. The neon sign outside buzzed, casting a pink glow through the curtains. I sat on the lumpy bed, staring at my hands, trying to figure out who I was without them. Tara stayed until I promised I'd be okay. "You're tougher than you know," she said, hugging me before leaving. Alone, I unpacked my sketchbook, its pages heavy with old wounds. I didn't draw. Just wrote one word enough. I'd spent years carrying Mom Sadie Nathan thinking love meant sacrifice. But their choice, Sadie's ring, Mom's cold eyes, Nathan's silence had shown me I was worth more than their scraps. The next morning I called Tara's contact at a design firm in the city. My voice shook as I pitched myself, but I landed an interview. I showered, put on my only blazer, and took a bus downtown, the skyline unfamiliar but alive. The firm's office was all glass and sharp lines intimidating, but the manager Marcus had a warm smile. "Your portfolio's rough, but there's heart in it," he said, flipping through my sketches. I got the job entry-level, barely enough to cover rent, but it was a start. I found a studio apartment, a shoebox with peeling paint, and a view of a brick wall. It felt like a palace. I set up my desk by the window, my pencils lined up like soldiers. Work became my lifeline. I'd stay late tweaking layouts, learning software I'd never touched. Marcus noticed, giving me small projects: a flyer, a website banner. "You've got an eye," he told me one day, handing me a coffee. "Don't hide it." His words stuck a tiny spark in the dark. I started therapy too, a weekly session at a community center. The therapist, Dr. Lena, had a voice like warm honey. "What do you want, Abigail?" she asked in our first meeting. I didn't know. I'd spent so long wanting Nathan's love, Mom's approval, that I'd forgotten myself. She gave me homework. Write one thing I liked about myself each day. At first it was hard. My list was blank for a week. But then I wrote, "I'm still here." It felt true. Outside work, I was alone but not lonely. I'd walk to a corner diner, order pie, and read novels I'd never had time for. The waitress, Carla, started saving me the cherry slice. "You look like you're finding your way," she said once, refilling my water. I smiled, realizing she was right. I wasn't healing yet, but I was moving step by shaky step. One evening I joined an art class at a local studio, something Tara had pushed me to try. The teacher, Elise, was all energy, her hands smudged with charcoal. "Make something honest," she said, passing out canvases. I painted a storm, all blues and grays, my brush moving like it had a mind of its own. Elise stopped by, nodding. "That's real," she said. "Keep going." For the first time in months, I felt seen, not for what I'd lost, but for what I could create. Back at my apartment, I started designing a light fixture, a chandelier with delicate twisting branches, each curve a piece of the pain I was letting go. It was for a client, but it was also for me, a way to turn my scars into something beautiful. I worked on it at night, my fingers sore, my heart steady. I wasn't the Abigail who'd begged Nathan to stay. I was becoming someone new, and that felt like the first real victory. I was 25 now, Abigail living in my Columbus apartment, the chandelier design taking shape on my desk. The city's pulse was starting to feel like mine each day, a step further from the girl who'd fled that Ohio house. Work was demanding, but I thrived on it, pouring myself into every project. Marcus gave me a bigger role, designing a full event space for a local gala. "This is your shot," he said, his voice steady. "Show them what you've got." I nodded, my stomach fluttering with possibility. Elise from art class became a friend, her laugh a bright spot in my weeks. She'd drag me to galleries, pointing out paintings with bold strokes. "You need to live bigger, Abigail," she said one night, sipping wine at an exhibit. She was right. I'd been small for so long, shrinking to fit Mom's expectations, Nathan's choices. Now I was learning to take up space. I started sketching again, not just for clients, but for me, filling a new notebook with ideas, dreams I hadn't dared to name. Therapy with Dr. Lena was peeling back layers. "You're not responsible for their choices," she said one session, her pen tapping her notepad. I told her about the chandelier, how it felt like rebuilding myself. She smiled. "That's you claiming your story." I started listing more things I liked about myself, my persistence, my eye for color, the way I could make Carla at the diner laugh. The list grew, and so did I, each word a brick and a new foundation. One afternoon, I got a call from Tara. "Heard from a friend back home," she said. "Sadie and Nathan's shop is struggling. Your mom's not helping them much." I waited for the old ache to hit, but it didn't. I felt a quiet strength instead, like I'd outgrown their chaos. "Thanks for telling me," I said, and meant it. I didn't need their failure to feel whole. I was building that myself. At the gala's planning meeting, I pitched my chandelier. As the centerpiece, my voice steady as I showed my sketches. The client, a sharp woman named Claire, leaned forward. "This is unique," she said. "You're hired." I walked out of that room, my heart pounding not with fear but pride. That night I stayed up refining the design, each curve a testament to my survival. I wasn't just designing a light, I was lighting my own way. Then I met Lucas. It was at the gala's preview event. The venue still half-finished, my chandelier mock-up glowing softly. He was an architect, tall, with kind eyes, studying my work. "This is incredible," he said, his voice warm. "What's the story behind it?" I hesitated, unused to anyone seeing me so clearly. We talked for hours about art ambition, the way a single design can change a space. He sketched a building on a napkin, his lines sure, and I saw myself in his passion. Elise nudged me later, grinning. "He's into you, Abigail. Don't overthink it." I laughed, but my heart raced. Lucas asked me for coffee, his smile tentative, like he wasn't sure I'd say yes. I almost didn't, the memory of Nathan's betrayal still a shadow. But I looked at him, at the napkin sketch he'd slipped into my hand, and said, "Okay." It wasn't just a date. It was a choice to trust again, to believe I deserved more. Our first coffee turned into dinner, then walks through the city. Lucas pointing out buildings he loved. He'd lost his parents young, built his life from scratch, and his resilience mirrored mine. "You're not like anyone I've met," he told me one night, his hand brushing mine. I felt a spark, not the desperate need I'd known with Nathan, but something steady, real. Back home, I stood in front of my chandelier mock-up, its branches catching the lamplight. I traced one curve, my finger steady, and whispered, "This is mine." It wasn't loud, wasn't a shout to the world. It was quiet, a vow to myself. I'd left the girl who begged for love behind. The woman I was becoming didn't need permission to shine. I was 28. Abigail standing in my Columbus apartment, the city's hum, a steady backdrop to my new life. Lucas and I were engaged, his ring a simple band I wore with quiet pride. My design firm was growing, my name whispered in circles that once felt out of reach. The gala I'd designed had been a hit, its chandelier, now a signature piece lighting up venues across the state. I'd built this brick by brick from the ashes of a life Mom Sadie and Nathan had burned down. Work was relentless, but I loved it. My office aloft with exposed beams buzzed with sketches and coffee cups. I hired a small team, including Elise, who'd traded her art classes for a desk by mine. "You're a force, Abigail," she said, pinning a new blueprint to the wall. I smiled, but inside I was still learning to believe it. Every contract, every client call was a reminder I wasn't the girl who'd begged for love. Lucas was my anchor, not in the desperate way Nathan had been, but in a way that felt like home. We'd cook dinner in our cramped kitchen, debating floor plans over pasta. His laugh easing the weight I still carried. One night he showed me his latest project, a community center with solar panels, his eyes bright. "This is us," he said, pointing to the sketch. "Building something that lasts." I kissed him, my heart full, knowing I'd chosen right. But the past wasn't gone. Tara called one afternoon, her voice hesitant. "Sadie and Nathan's shop is barely hanging on," she said. "Your mom's been telling people you abandoned them, that you're too big for your roots now." I sat at my desk, a pencil tapping my palm. The old Abigail would have spiraled guilty, desperate to fix it. But I just sighed. "Let them talk," I said. "I'm done carrying their story." Tara laughed proud, and I hung up feeling lighter, like I'd shed a skin. I threw myself into planning a new gala, my biggest yet, to celebrate my firm's first year. The venue was a grand hall, all marble and high ceilings, and I designed every detail from the table settings to a new chandelier, its glass petals catching light like a dream. Lucas helped sketching structural supports, his precision balancing my creativity. "This is your moment," he said, squeezing my hand. I nodded, but a flicker of nerves hit me. I wanted to invite Mom Sadie and Nathan, not to gloat, but to show them I'd survived. The decision wasn't easy. I sat on our couch, a notebook open, weighing it. Lucas watched quiet, letting me think. "What do you need from this?" he asked finally. I traced the page, my pen circling their names. "I need them to see me," I said. "Not the old Abigail, but who I am now." He nodded, his hand on mine. I mailed the invitations, my handwriting steady, but my pulse raced knowing they'd come. Weeks later, I was at the venue overseeing setup. The chandelier hung radiant, its light softening the room. Elise adjusted a centerpiece, her earrings glinting. "You're nervous," she said. "Not a question." I laughed, smoothing my skirt. "It's just another event." But it wasn't. I pictured Mom's tight smile, Sadie's envious glance, Nathan's regret. They'd see my work, my life, and maybe for once they'd have nothing to say. I walked the hall alone, my heels clicking on the floor. The air was cool, the chandelier's glow warm above me. I stopped, looking up, my reflection faint in the glass. I'd built this, not just the light, but the woman standing beneath it. The invitations were out, the past was coming, and I was ready. But as I stood there, a chill hit me, their faces flashing in my mind, and for a moment everything froze, the weight of what was coming pressing down. I was 29. Abigail, my hands steady as I adjusted a floral arrangement in the gala hall. The chandelier above shimmered, its glass petals casting flecks of light across the marble floor. Lucas was outside checking the parking setup, his calm presence a quiet strength. I'd invited Mom, Sadie, and Nathan, and the weight of that choice sat heavy in my chest. This wasn't about revenge. It was about standing in my truth, letting them see the life I'd built without them. The days before the gala were a blur of details. I met with caterers, tweaked lighting cues, and reviewed guest lists, my team buzzing around me. Elise caught me staring at the invitation's RSVP list, Mom's name marked accepted. "You sure about this?" she asked, her voice low. I nodded, my jaw tight. "They need to see it," I said. She squeezed my shoulder, saying nothing more. Her silence was enough, a reminder I wasn't alone. Lucas and I spent evenings planning not just the event, but our future. We'd found a small house to rent, a place with a yard for the dog we kept joking about. One night he spread out blueprints on our coffee table, his latest project. "This one's for us," he said, pointing to a skylight. "You'll love the light it brings." I leaned into him, his warmth grounding me. He didn't know Mom or Sadie, but he knew their shadow, and he loved me through it. The morning of the gala, I stood in our bedroom, slipping into a dress I'd chosen, deep blue with subtle stitching I'd designed myself. It wasn't flashy, but it was mine, a quiet claim of who I'd become. Lucas buttoned his shirt, watching me in the mirror. "You're ready," he said, his eyes steady. I wasn't sure if he meant the gala or them, but I nodded, my reflection unfamiliar but strong. At the venue, I moved through final checks, my heels soft on the floor. Marcus, my old boss, arrived early, his suit crisp. "You've outdone yourself, Abigail," he said, gesturing to the chandelier. "This is your legacy." His words landed deep, a validation I hadn't known I needed. I thanked him, my voice even, but inside I felt the past stirring, their faces. Mom's, Sadie's, Nathan's looming closer. The guest list was a mix of clients, colleagues, and a few friends, but my family's presence hung over me. I'd heard from Tara they were coming, though she warned me. Sadie had been bitter, calling my success showing off. I didn't care. This gala was my proof, not to them but to myself, that I'd risen above their betrayal. I adjusted a napkin, my fingers lingering, and felt a shiver. They'd be here soon, walking into my world. An hour before guests arrived, I stood by the entrance, the hall quiet except for the hum of staff. I checked my phone, no messages, just a photo of Lucas and me at the park, laughing. I smiled, pocketing it, but then I saw the RSVP card on my clipboard, their names in black ink. My breath caught a flicker of the old Abigail, the one who'd begged for their love. I pushed it down, straightening my shoulders. The first guests trickled in, their chatter filling the space. I greeted them, my smile practiced, but my eyes kept darting to the door. Then I saw them, Mom, Sadie, Nathan, stepping through, their faces stiff, out of place in my polished world. Mom's eyes scanned the room. Sadie's lips pursed, and Nathan's shoulders hunched. They hadn't spoken to me yet, but their presence was a weight, a silent challenge. I stood under my chandelier, its light steady above me, and felt my heart slow the moment crystallizing. They were here, and I was not the girl they'd left behind. I was 29. Abigail standing in the grand hall I'd transformed the gala in full swing around me. The chandelier above glowed softly, its light a quiet testament to the years I'd spent rebuilding. Guests mingled their voices, a warm hum glasses clinking as they admired my work. Lucas was nearby charming a client with his easy smile, but I felt a stillness settle over me like the world had slowed just for a moment. Mom, Sadie, and Nathan were here, their presence a shadow, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I slipped away from the crowd, finding a corner near the dessert table where a small window overlooked the city. Columbus sparkled below, its light steady, unlike the chaos I'd left behind in Ohio. I leaned against the sill, my dress brushing the floor, and let myself breathe. 5 years ago, I'd been a ghost in my own life, begging for love that wasn't mine to keep. Now I was here whole, my hands steady, my heart my own. A familiar face approached Ruth, the motel clerk who'd given me a cookie on my darkest night. I'd invited her a quiet thank you for her kindness. Her hair was grayer now, her dress simple but elegant. "Abigail, this is something," she said, her eyes crinkling as she gestured to the room. "You were just a kid back then, lost. Look at you now." I smiled, my throat tight. "You saw me when I couldn't see myself," I said. She patted my hand, her touch warm, and I felt a piece of my past settle forgiven. We talked softly, her voice pulling me back to that motel room, the first place I'd called mine. She told me about her daughter, estranged but reaching out lately, and I shared a little about Lucas, how he'd taught me trust didn't have to hurt. Ruth nodded like she understood. "You built this night, honey," she said. "Not just the lights, but you." Her words landed gently like a truth I'd been carrying but hadn't named. I glanced across the room, catching Mom's eye. She was near the bar, her posture stiff, a glass of wine untouched in her hand. Sadie stood beside her, whispering something, her dress too tight, her smile forced. Nathan hovered nearby, his tie loose, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. They hadn't approached me yet, and I didn't want them to. Their presence was enough a reminder of what I'd survived. I turned back to Ruth, her gaze steady, and felt a quiet strength. They couldn't touch me here. A quartet began playing a soft melody I'd chosen months ago, its notes weaving through the chatter. It reminded me of evenings in my apartment, sketching alone, finding peace in small things. I excused myself from Ruth, promising to find her later, and moved through the crowd, my steps light. Guests stopped me, praising the decor, the ambiance, but their words were background noise. I was searching for something inside myself, a certainty I'd earned. I paused by a table, picking up a napkin, its edge embroidered with a pattern I'd designed. It was subtle, but it was mine, a mark of the woman I'd become. Lucas caught my eye from across the room, his nod a silent question. "You okay?" I nodded back, my lips curving. I was more than okay. I was home, not in this hall, but in myself. The music swelled, and I closed my eyes for a moment, letting it carry me, my breath slow, my heart steady, ready for whatever came next. I moved back into the gala's flow, the crowd's warmth wrapping around me. I was 29. Abigail and the hall felt like an extension of my heart, every detail a piece of the life I'd built. The quartet's melody faded into a softer tune, and I found Lucas near the dance floor, his tie slightly askew. He pulled me close, his hands steady on my back, and we swayed, not speaking, just existing together. His presence was a quiet promise, one I'd learned to trust. Mom approached as the song ended, her steps hesitant, her earrings catching the light. "Abigail, this is impressive," she said, her voice tight, like the words cost her. I nodded, my smile polite but distant. "Thanks for coming," I said, my tone even. She waited, maybe expecting more, but I had nothing left to give her. She turned away, her shoulders stiff, and I felt no pull to follow. Sadie was next, lingering by a table, her fingers tracing a centerpiece. "Nice party," she said, her eyes flicking over my dress. her tone sharp with something unspoken. I met her gaze, seeing the girl who'd taken so much, but she looked smaller now, diminished by her own choices. "I'm glad you think so," I said, and walked away. My steps, sure. Her silence followed me, heavy but powerless. Nathan caught me near the bar, his face flushed, his voice low. "Abigail." "I'm sorry," he said, his words rushed. "I messed up back then." I looked at him, the man I'd once loved, now a stranger in a wrinkled suit. "You did?" I said, not cruelly, just true. "But I'm not that girl anymore." He nodded, his eyes dropping, and I turned, leaving him to his regret. I found a quiet spot by the stage, the chandelier's glow soft above. Elise joined me, her laugh soft. "You're a queen tonight," she said, nudging my arm. I smiled, but my thoughts were elsewhere, tracing the years that had brought me here. I'd lost a family, a love, a home, but I'd gained myself piece by painful piece. That was enough. I stepped outside for air, the night cool against my skin. The city hummed its lights, a map of possibilities. I thought of the motel, Ruth's cookie, my first sketch in that tiny apartment. Each moment had been a choice to keep going, to build something new. Mom, Sadie, Nathan, they were here, but they were no longer my story. I was. Back inside, I stood by the stage, ready to speak. The crowd hushed their faces, expectant. Lucas was at my side, his hand brushing mine. I looked out, seeing Mom, Sadie, Nathan in the back, their expressions unreadable. I didn't need their approval, not anymore. I was Abigail, 29, and this was my moment, not to prove them wrong, but to claim my peace. I took a breath, my voice ready, and felt the weight of the past slip away, light as a sigh. I was 29. Abigail, standing on the gala's stage, the crowd's eyes on me. The chandelier's light felt like a quiet embrace, my creation holding me steady. Lucas stood close, his presence a calm anchor. Mom, Sadie, and Nathan were in the back, their faces stiff, but I wasn't speaking to them. I was speaking to myself, the girl who'd walked away from a house that broke her, who'd built this life from nothing. My voice was soft but clear, carrying the weight of my journey. I thanked my team, Elise's grin bright in the front row. I nodded to Marcus, whose belief had pushed me forward. I found Ruth, her eyes shining, and my heart swelled. "This night," I said, "is for anyone who's ever had to start over." The room was still, the air thick with understanding. I didn't mention the betrayal, the years of pain. I didn't need to. My life, this hall, was my answer. Stepping off the stage, I felt lighter, like I'd set down a burden I'd carried too long. Guests surged forward, their praise warm, but I slipped through, needing a moment. I found a side door, stepping onto a balcony overlooking the city. The night was crisp, Columbus's skyline a patchwork of light and shadow. I leaned on the railing, my dress rustling, and let the silence settle over me. In the weeks after the gala, life found a new rhythm. Lucas and I moved into our rented house, a small place with creaky floors and a porch swing. We'd sit there evenings, coffee mugs in hand, planning our days. I started running, not fast, just steady, my sneakers hitting the pavement each morning. It wasn't about fitness. It was about moving forward, feeling my own strength. The neighborhood was quiet, kids biking past, their laughter, a soft backdrop to my thoughts. Work slowed to a gentler pace. My firm was steady, but I took weekends off, something I'd never done. I'd drive to a nearby lake, sketchbook in hand, drawing the water's ripples or the curve of a tree. It wasn't for clients, just for me, a way to remember I could create without proving anything. Elise joined me sometimes, her chatter filling the silence, but she knew when to let me be. I kept seeing Dr. Lena, my therapist, though sessions were less frequent. "You're living for yourself now," she said one afternoon, her notebook closed. I nodded, realizing it was true. I'd stopped waiting for apologies that wouldn't come, stopped needing Mom's approval or Sadie's regret. Nathan's face was a faded memory, his choices no longer my weight. I was enough, not because I'd won, but because I'd chosen to keep going. One morning I found a small bookstore near my office, its shelves crammed with used novels. I started going weekly, picking out stories I'd never read, losing myself in their pages. The owner, a woman named June, would save me mysteries saying, "This one's got your name on it, Abigail." I'd smile tucking the book under my arm, feeling like I belonged to this life I'd made. Back at the house, I planted herbs in pots on the porch, their green tips a small victory. Lucas would tease me saying I'd turn our yard into a jungle, but he'd water them when I forgot. We were building something, not just a home, but a future one rooted in trust. I looked at my ring sometimes, its band catching the sun, and felt a quiet joy, not loud but deep. The past was behind me, its edges softened, and I was ready to live what came next. I was 29. Abigail sitting on our porch swing, the evening air cool against my skin. The gala was weeks behind me, its memory a quiet glow like a candle left burning. Lucas was inside, sketching at the kitchen table, his pencil scratching softly. I held a mug of tea, its warmth seeping into my palms, and watched fireflies blink in the yard. The world felt gentle, like it was holding its breath, giving me space to settle into who I'd become. I'd seen Mom once more at the gala after my speech. She'd approached as I mingled, her face softer, almost uncertain. "You've done well, Abigail," she said, her voice low. I nodded, my eyes steady. "I have," I said, and turned to greet a guest, letting her words drift away. Sadie and Nathan had left early, their exit unnoticed by the crowd, their presence no longer my anchor. I didn't hate them, didn't wish them pain. I'd simply outgrown their shadow. Life now was small, deliberate moments. I'd started baking simple things like bread, the dough soft under my hands. The smell filled our house, grounding me in a way I hadn't known I needed. Lucas would steal a warm slice, grinning, and I'd laugh, the sound new, unburdened. I took long walks alone, the city's streets, familiar now, each step a reminder I belonged to myself first. One afternoon, I visited Ruth at her motel, bringing a small box of cookies I'd baked. She hugged me, her eyes bright, and we sat in her tiny office sharing stories. "You're a light, Abigail," she said, her voice firm. I smiled, realizing I believed her. I'd spent years chasing approval, thinking love meant bending myself to fit. But love, I learned, was in the quiet choices, showing up for myself, for Lucas, for the people who saw me. I kept a new notebook now, not for pain, but for gratitude. I wrote about the way the lake reflected clouds, how Elisa's laugh echoed in my office, the weight of Lucas's hand in mine. Each entry was a stitch mending the parts of me I'd thought broken. I wasn't perfect, didn't need to be. I was enough, and that was the hardest, truest thing I'd ever learned. The lesson wasn't loud, wasn't a victory shout. It was this: healing isn't about winning or proving others wrong. It's about choosing yourself every day, even when it hurts. It's about letting go of the voices that say you're less and building a life that says you're more. I'd lost a family, a love, but I'd found something stronger, my own heart steady and whole. I stood the swing creaking and looked at the stars above our yard. Lucas stepped out, his arms slipping around me. "You good?" he asked, his voice soft. I nodded, ending into him, the night wrapping us close. The past was done, not forgotten, but finished. I was here now, and that was enough. What's a moment you chose yourself, even when it was hard? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story. If this resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. Thank you for being here, for listening. Here's to finding your light wherever you are.